Not trying to be funny, not trying to get a laugh. Don't want anybody to have the worst day at their job.
You've got a job as a teacher. Why do you need more money?
And I make nothing. Zero. Zilch.
Guess what, Mr. Krabs? Me and Squidward are gonna go on strike!
Hello, Lindy.
Hello, Marissa.
Welcome, everybody, to the RIVERHAWK Hired podcast. And today, we can be talking about hustling.
Hustling.
Yeah. What was that one song? Every day I'm...
Well, it was shuffling by I put hustling.
And then beep, boom, beep, boom, beep, boom, beep, beep, boom, beep, beep. So, we're
Anyway.
talking about side hustles.
Coming back from 2009.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, talking about side hustles today.
Yeah.
Because that's becoming more of a thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of times we don't see that sometimes what we be doing, it's a side hustle. So
Yeah.
it gives you that flexibility, that nice stuff, especially while we're in college. You know, sometimes we think that this is a full quest when it should be a side quest. So
That's a really good way
remembering
of putting
those kinds of things. But so when we think of, you know, side hustles, sometimes people think of like MLMs or, oh, I walk dogs on the weekend, stuff like that. So that's like a few ideas, but we're going to talk a little bit about.
Be wary of MLMs.
Yeah, please be wary of those. Don't do it.
Yeah, I agree.
We tell you not to do a lot of stuff on this podcast, but I beg you, please make that the number one thing that you don't do.
Yeah.
Do not do. But the appeal of generating additional revenue is, you know, pretty tempting to a lot of people, especially with the financial climate that we find ourselves in.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's really easy, especially if you have to watch The Wolf of Wall Street at any point. Someone told me it was a prereq somewhere.
Oh, okay.
And so I bring that up to say a lot of the times people try to go into business or any kind of career path with this, like, I gotta take the bull by the horns, like all the kind of stuff. And that usually makes people want to make rash decisions.
Yep.
So we're just going to talk about a couple of steps you can take before you fully commit to a side hustle.
Yeah.
Especially if it is a for real side hustle, like you've got a big person job, let's say, something that's more serious, not as flexible as a side hustle.
Right.
You know, like you have a front desk job, like you're, you know, a student worker at our front desk or something like that. That would be considered, I guess, your big person job. And then if you wanted to walk dogs on the weekends, that's the side hustle. So first things first, Lindy, what do you have to say about side hustles?
Well, I think, I think I have friends that do side hustles, and for some it has been so successful, and for others it just has not been successful.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that comes down to sustainability.
Yeah.
I think that is like the biggest thing to think about. You need to weigh your pros and cons always, and we have some of those probably that we're going to talk about. But thinking about sustainability, because depending on what that side hustle is, so walking dogs is a great side hustle because you can build your network, those types of things, right? And we'll talk more into like pros and cons of those things. But I also think about side hustles where people are selling wares, right? So like turning hobbies into a career. Not saying that you can't do that, because absolutely you can do that, and you can end up making it a full-time job, but you have to know that that's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take literal blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Yeah. And so those are things to think about. Is this going to be sustainable over a long period of time? Is this something that's worth making the investment? Because not only are you investing money, but you're investing time. And time is a huge thing to have to invest sometimes.
And energy. Especially if this is your side hustle.
Yes.
Like you've got, so first things first, let's make sure that you're being compensated well for what you are doing in this side hustle, right? You want to make sure that you're getting a good return on investment, because a lot of the time that's how people will rate how successful their side hustle's going, right? Like, man, I may be tired, but I have an extra $500 to spend this month on more Doritos or something. I don't know. And so you got to make sure that you're going to make profit. Yeah. And I know a lot of the times side hustles can come from a place of passion, like you said, like turning your hobby into a job. But sometimes once we get into it, we realize like, oh, I might need to charge $40 in order to be profitable. Yeah. And just because that is a price that makes it profitable doesn't make it sellable. Right. So you got to take all of those kinds of pieces into consideration when thinking about profitability. Yes, you've set yourself up to make a good return on investment, but like realistically, are people going to be paying $40 for your, homemade beanie cap or something?
Well, and that's something, you have to think about like how are people going to receive this? And you also have to be willing to deal with unhappy customers as well.
A lot of the times people just jump right in, especially when people come to them with side hustles. Because a lot of the times there are different kinds of side hustles that involve recruitment of other people. And most of the time that's MLMs. But there are some other instances where it also pops up. Because a big part of your side hustle is networking, especially if it's a self-propelled side hustle. It's not something, that's already got like the backbone and all the stuff in the background ready, like Uber Eats or DoorDash, things like that. But trying to figure out where you fall within this, this marker of, if someone comes up to me and offers like, hey, do you want to make $1,000 a week? Like, do you just say yes, or do you want to step back and think about it? And so thinking about things like the profitability, but also that flexibility. Yes. Like, is it really a side hustle if it's not something you can do on the side? Like, at what point does the side hustle become just a second job? Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And like something with that flexibility can become working around other people's schedules. Yeah. Right. So like there are times, so let's say that you want to drive for Uber. You can kind of pick and choose when you want to turn yourself on to driving, right? Like telling people, hey, I'm available as a driver. You kind of get to pick and choose that schedule, right? And so that's nice. But sometimes, depending on the side hustle, you're having to work around other people's schedules, other people's deadlines. So like walking dogs, for example, you may be able to do that on your own schedule. But if someone needs their dog walked from 3 to 3:30 and everybody else's dogs that you're going to be walking for that day are going to be from 10 to 10:30, right? Are you willing to be flexible? And if you have a full-time job, is this sustainable? Again, back to that sustainability. Or like if someone is commissioning a piece from you, right? So like if you're having to make something for somebody, let's say you're having to make something for somebody's wedding. Let's use that as an example. Like if you sew, shout out to Callie upstairs. She sews and she sells her stuff, I believe. So check her out because she's super talented.
So she has figured out the art of balancing she would have been person job and a side hustle. Yes. Oh, Callie, we're coming for you. You gotta be a guest sometime.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we can have her on to kind of talk about it. But regardless, like, so she makes clothes, right? Nice. Well, if she, so if somebody is having to commission a piece, or like if you do wedding dress alterations, right, as a side hustle, obviously you're going to have a deadline. Yeah. You're going to have the alterations done by a certain point. There's going to be people trying things on, and there's going to be a process in that, right? And so sometimes you're going to have to make sure that you hit that deadline. And if you have other pieces that you're having to make in the meantime of that, what does that look like? How do you juggle those things?
And so. Like, you're going to stick with it because, okay, let me back it up a little bit. If it's more flexible, you're more likely to stick with it. Yep. Because once it becomes this, well, I've got to meet this deadline. It's not a side hustle at that point. It's just a second job. Yep. And if that's what you want, cool. Roll with it. Congratulations. Like, you now have a second job, but like, you want to keep that flexibility open in order for it to be that side hustle that gives you, you know, that short term, I don't know. It just, the flexibility is just so enticing when it comes to side hustles, in my opinion. Yeah. Because it's, you know, literally like side quest and Legends of Zelda, where you're not working on this quest the whole time. It's just a part of your journey. And I think that that's kind of the appeal of being a side hustle or being in a side hustle. The next thing it talks about is the number of lifestyle changes that are required to do the side hustle. So you mentioned, like, if you're making dress alterations, what if you got a whole family at home and it's chili night and like the baby comes in covered in chili and touches the dress? Like, you got to think of the lifestyle changes that are required. So like, if I'm working with wedding dresses, maybe I should keep this in a separate room for my toddlers. Or, well, this means I'm not going to be able to like see my kids at X, Y, and Z, or I can't have dinner with my husband every night. Things like that. Or just, you know, I want to go to Pilates at this time, but most of my clients for my side hustle are only available while my Pilates class is going on. So it's just taking into consideration the sacrifices you are willing to make for this side hustle. Because sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that. But again, if you don't have that flexibility in tandem with the knowledge of knowing what could possibly need to be changed, when entering that side hustle, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, because, okay, so if it happens during that Pilates class, then that means, okay, well, I can't go to this Pilates class, but maybe there's another one that's offered somewhere else. And so that would be where you would have to kind of change things around. So, yeah.
And overall, the last thing you kind of want to measure when it comes to side hustles, and should I go into this side hustle? Because we don't want to always just say yes at every person who presents as a business plan, right? That's how we fall into MLMs. Don't. But you want to think about the effect on your overall satisfaction. You want to make sure that you are happy in this. You don't want to be completely miserable in your side hustle the entire time, just like in a regular job. You don't want to be completely miserable the entire time, because that's not sustainable. Like you said, you can't just be unhappy the entire time if you want to keep on trucking along in this crazy thing we call life.
Yes.
So thinking about your personal preferences, the money, the experience, take all of that into consideration when thinking of your satisfaction. Don't think of how this affects your family and whatnot. Think of your overall satisfaction on it. But there are pros and cons to having side gigs.
Yes.
Side gigs, side hustles, whatever you want to call them. So I'd say the biggest benefit's probably more money.
Extra money. Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody likes extra money.
Oh, yeah. And that's usually the first thing that gets people into the frame of thinking like, oh, yeah, I want to go into a side hustle. Whether it's someone bringing, you know, that statement of I can make it to where you make an extra $1,000 a month or something like that. That's usually the thing that entices people. So again, money's really appealing to everyone. So just make sure that you do your research before you just fully commit, whether it's self-propelled or propelled by someone else in your community. Just make sure that it's legit.
And if you are earning more money, are you actually earning more money?
True,
right? What's your return on investment? That's the biggest thing to think about, because you have, so if you're creating something and you're selling those things, what does packaging look like? How much does shipping cost if you're having to send it to people? That's true. You know, those types of things. So yes, extra money is awesome, but make sure you know your value, you know your worth of your services, so you can make that moolah.
I think another benefit of going into side hustles is you just learn new skills, new experiences, which is always great. I mean, maybe you're not from a customer service kind of background, but now you're selling, you know, like the cool keychains that you make on the weekends when you know you're watching a new movie or something. That's something that honestly you could add to your resume. You have experience in customer service on an entrepreneurial level, which kind of just showcases and gives context to the whole situation in the first place, because entrepreneur, whatever the word is, customer service is an entrepreneur versus like I am simply an employee in this bigger, you know, company type of customer service is two very different things.
It is.
And so I think that it's really good to showcase that you are an entrepreneur and that you have that customer service skill, because especially whenever it comes to wares that you're making, things that you're making, and someone hits you with this looks like crap, I don't want it, I want my refund. Like you could easily, since it's your baby that you just made, like be like, listen here, send it back, you know,
right.
Go that way. So I think it really helps showcase that you're really skilled in customer service. Potential for new business.
Yeah. So it could turn into a full-time job.
Yeah.
Now, think realistically, but also like that could actually happen. It happens for people. I have friends that had side hustles that have now turned into full-time jobs, and they have it as their income.
And they love it.
Yep.
But it's probably because they did everything that we just mentioned.
Yes.
That
yes.
self-reflection, the prepping, the thinking it through all the way. But I think it's also takes us to our next little topic of have a backup plan.
Yeah.
What does that look like? If you are into making cute little tumblers, you know, for your community, and you sell them and all that kind of stuff, what happens when that isn't successful and you have this whole stock of cups?
Yeah.
What's the backup plan? Are we selling the cups in a different way? Are we putting a new design on them just so you can make your money back? So have that backup plan of, if this fails, what can I do to respin it or recoil? Or even if your backup plan is just like a loss is a loss, like you just have that kind of plan, because in the long run, as someone who has probably a lot of hats to juggle, because this is considered a side hustle, so that insinuates that you've got main hustles. If you have that backup plan, I would personally feel a lot safer walking into my side hustle every time and being like, well, my backup plan is X, Y, and Z, so I ain't too worried about it. And I think that could make you more confident in your side hustle in the long run. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah.
And then like the networking and the socialization of it. You really do get the opportunity in those side hustles to be with a completely different set of people than what you are used to, because typically side hustles are kind of, I'm not going to say kind of, they're different than your normal big person job. And so having just another network of people, it's always great, you know.
Yes.
Socializing with people that are outside your normal circle.
Yeah.
It's always great. It's one of those competencies from NACE, that self-development, that career development, that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
But there are downsides.
Yeah.
To side hustles. So you want to take those away, Lynn?
Sure. So one kind of con is splitting focus. So if you are juggling a full-time career and this side hustle and a personal life and family and everything else, it can really split your time and really wear you thin, right?
Make you stressed out, and like, obviously you're in a stressful situation because you're in a side hustle, so you can make more money because there's a stressful situation that requires more money of some sort. But
well, and like,
don't make it worse.
Is this thing like making your full-time career suffer? And like, maybe your side hustle is doing so great that your full-time career is suffering. And so then you go, hey, this is great. I can put in my 2 weeks and I can do this full-time, right? But if you do have this full-time career and you drive for DoorDash as well, but you're up like super late taking orders to the point where like it's hard for you to focus the next day at work, you know, where do you need to go? Okay, maybe I need to reprioritize, because I get it. Like, you know, with the economy being what it is right now, you know, having a side hustle or 2 jobs or whatever is not uncommon. Yeah. But like, a lot of it comes down to what are you willing to sacrifice, you know, and you have to be willing to accept those consequences, whatever that is, whether that's your personal time, your social life, whatever that looks like. You know, you might not be able to go out with friends every Friday if you have to, you know, take orders or whatever it is.
Exactly. splitting up that time, splitting up the focus.
Yeah.
It's just, you're going to see a lot of different shifting things. And so just be prepared. And it's a downside. So if you're willing to deal with it, do it.
Something else that kind of goes in hand with that is extra time demands.
Yeah. Yeah, that really does go hand in hand.
You're going to have to spend more of your time on these things. And so again, if you're totally willing to do that, then absolutely go for it. Yeah, do it. So yeah, low return on investment. We talked about this, like cost of materials in the beginning. You might lose money, you might break even. And so those are things to consider, is like financially, what are you able to invest, and will you get a good return on investment for what that is? Because you have to consider so many different angles depending on what it is, obviously. But like, again, kind of when I talked about like if you're selling wares, well, if you're shipping stuff, so if you've set something up on Etsy, right, as like your little side hustle, and you're making stuff, so orders come in, you have to process those orders. What does that look like? Do you need to get a PO box? Do you need to, like, what kind of packaging do you want? You have to think about branding. You have to think about all of these different aspects, which is not hard to do, right? If you're going to sit down and you really want to make this happen, you absolutely can. But you also have to be realistic and going, okay, well, I might have a low return on investment. And when do you also have to know when to go, this isn't working.
Yep. Knowing when to bow out.
Yeah.
Because in the long run, you don't want the side hustle to be your demise.
Yeah. Or like if it is a hobby that you're turning into a full-time job, is that going to ruin like your love and enjoyment for that thing that you love to do, right? That's something that's something to think about too.
Oh, 100%. Like, people do not take into consideration, like, this is my passion, but if I do the passion, like, every day for
Will
years.
You get burnt out on it? Yeah.
Yes. And that's scary. And that's a whole other podcast topic we could talk about, is like burnout within your passion.
And that doesn't always happen, right? Yeah. People who do it and it turns into a full-time business, they love it, and they love that they get to do it every day. And so, you know, even though these are cons, they can also be pros. So
I think the ultimate con is that increased stress.
Yeah.
Like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Working my thing down
with it. Yeah.
But consider your options very carefully.
Yep.
Do your research before you jump in, I beg you. And if there's ever a business proposal brought your way that seems a little sketchy, we're here to help. So you can book an appointment with one of our career counselors to just check out that job posting with you, or that business proposal, or whichever. Yeah. Just to make sure that you're getting an actual side hustle and not signing your life and money away. So.
Yes. Well, and like something else that I found was like income tax complexity. Like that is a big thing to think about with side hustles, because if you are like starting a side hustle, you're going to have to report it on your taxes. Yep. If you're getting any kind of income, like consistent income, you're going to have to report it on your taxes. And so what does that look like? And learning what that looks like, and what are your limits, and, you know, what are the things you're going to have to do for that? Yeah. Because you don't think about that, but that's part of it. So, yeah.
Honestly, just if it were a me thing, I think that makes it all too complicated. And then it's not as side hustly and fun at that point. I don't know, but that's just me.
Well, yeah. And everybody's different, right? Like I said, so I'll talk about one of my friends. So she does Poshmark, and she redoes furniture, like she
restores furniture.
Yes, restores it. Nice. Yes, I could not think of the word.
That sounds fun.
But yeah, and she does beautiful pieces with this furniture. Nice. And she charges a decent amount, like, but it's not too crazy. Same thing with her Poshmark. Like, so she does these two things, and she does talk about that there is a struggle with it, but she's able to keep that sustainability.
Yeah.
And she knows how it works, and she has learned how to deal with customers and when to fight and when to just give the refund, right? And it's all a learning process for her, but she's still doing it to this day. I hope to someday get a furniture piece from her. Because again, like, you can do it and you can make it sustainable, but you also have to think, right? She has to go and buy the furniture. She, even when she does Poshmark, she goes out and she gets the clothes and she does all of this, you know, like vintage clothes shopping, going to all the Goodwills and all of that. But she also restores those clothes. So like, she washes them. She makes sure that if they have stains, they don't have stains, right? She does the name brand. Yeah, she's got like all kinds of tips for that too. Like, but she sews up things that need to be sewed up, right? She's learned all of those things. She's learned how to do upholstery, all of those things. She can do it. There was an old counselor in the office who had herself set up on Fiverr. And she would do voiceover things. So like, she would read books, or she would do like, send her voice for a textbook or whatever, or a manual or whatever. She did stuff like that. And she had herself set up on Fiverr. She had a little microphone like our little podcast ones.
Honestly, okay, if you had to run out this door and start a side hustle, what would your side hustle be? I think I know, but tell the listeners.
I was going to say, just gave Marissa a look. So a couple things. So I sew. I don't sew clothes. I'm not talented like Callie in that way. But I like sew little things that I could absolutely sell. That are my jerky. I make beef jerky and have my own little recipe. And yeah, so it would be one of those two things probably. But it would be so...
Because those are,
it's like, I have so many people that have said like, oh, you should totally do this. And I'm like, I would love to, but I also just like gifting to my friends because my friends are nice to me.
Because if you get burnt out by that side hustle, that means less gifts for me.
And
everyone else.
I mean, that is part of it. Like, I think for me, the biggest thing is one, like the income tax and all, and like setting up your business and having to do all of that. That's so complicated. And not only that, but like, you have to be willing to take criticism even when it's not even like merited. And that in and of itself can be hard, especially when it's something that you've created. Because I'm already, when I'm sewing stuff for people, I'm like, oh my gosh, this line is not straight, and I know it's not straight and it looks terrible. And so if somebody were to be like, this line isn't straight, I'd be like, I know, I'm the worst, I need to quit. Like, so yeah. But what about you?
If I did a side hustle, I think I've always pictured myself as a dog walker, but realistically, absolutely. I don't want to be up in people's houses. I don't want to be up in their business. And honestly, all dogs suck except mine. Sorry, Jeremy. I love my dogs. They're little sweet little angel baby boys, and they're kind of stinky and rude sometimes, but I can handle that.
But they're yours.
They're my stinky rude butts. Like, I don't want to deal with. But realistically, I think one that I would enjoy is making clay beads.
Ooh.
Because then I could just sit there and do it while I'm watching TV, and then I can do like my Lisi did and take the coffee can out, did the charcoal, and then just fire them. And that way it's something like involved with my culture, but also something, because like clay bead necklaces are drippy, like they just look so good. I love the way that they look, because they get like burnt from the like the coffee can that they're in. They take on some of that soot. It looks really cool. It gives it
its own like personality.
Yes, I love it. So I think I'd want to do that, or like corn bead necklaces or something, because it's just one of those repetitive things, kind of like how people do crochet when they're like winding down at night. I think that would be really fun. Like beading graduation caps I used to do as a side hustle. I'm not great at it, so don't ask me to do it. But like, I think that something along those lines would probably be my side hustle.
Cool. I love that. It's kind of interesting, because so many people have like different talents, and you're like, oh, you could totally do that. But then like,
I'm telling you, the beef jerky, Lindy. The people are gonna die when they taste your beef jerky, because it's so good. That one needs to be shared with the world.
I need to make another batch for the office.
Oh my gosh!
But it's an easy recipe too. People are always like, "What's your secret?" And I'm like, I don't know. even though I found it on Pinterest.
Hey.
But I put my own spin to it, so I guess
Yeah.
there's that. But again, like, it's just so...
The tax thing, I think that's my hurdle.
Yeah.
Is like, girl, I don't want to do all that.
There's just a lot. And if you are willing to do that, go for it. What?
I just realized I said that the beating of the camps was my side hustle. Now we're talking about taxes. I'm sorry, IRS. When I was 17, I didn't report when I made the income.
I think there's a difference between like doing it as like a 1 or 2 time thing versus like actually like doing things. Well, and licensing, that's another thing. Like those people that make the Disney ears, like there are people who get in trouble all the time because they make Disney ears, but because of licensing reasons they can't, or copyright or whatever.
They're cuter when they're made by smaller creators.
I agree.
I think they have a
The
lot better
designs are
detail.
always typically better.
Oh,
yeah. I had a friend who was doing a side hustle for a little bit. This is one that it just wasn't sustainable for her. And she was doing some college branding stuff. And one of the universities reached out to her directly and sent her a cease and desist. So again,
that could be really scary to get.
Yes. So you have to be careful. And so she immediately stopped selling those. And there were people that were even asking like, why aren't you selling these anymore? And she's like, because I got in trouble and they will sue me and I don't have the money to deal with the
I love
lawsuit.
myself. That's why I stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, we're making things sound super negative. Go for it. Do the side hustle if you want to do the side hustle.
I got so excited about side hustles. I punched the microphone just now.
Well, and there are side hustles that are already kind of like set in place. So like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, those types of side hustles.
I take back my side hustle choice. I've got one. It's sustainable as heck.
What?
I would start a little booth at the farmer's market. And when I start my seedlings, like I only got to feed 2 people in my house. I don't have a lot of space, container plant. And so my garden can only take so many corn starters. And then I've got like a bunch of corn starters that if I don't use them before next season, then they could be duds, which just makes my life harder. So I've got a whole backlog of seeds.
Good.
But like doing the making just all the starters, and then I sell whatever starters.
People would
use.
love that.
Exactly.
That's already
Sustainable.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's already there.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah. You absolutely could do
I'm
stuff
starting
like
a business once I walk out this room.
that. Setting goals.
Setting goals.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
of that stuff.
Yeah. But, you know, weigh your pros and cons.
Yep.
I always like for anything, make a list, write it out so you can see, does this outweigh this? Okay, well, I put this as a con, but this is a pro. So actually this outweighs whatever this con is, right? Oh, my time. Well, I can sacrifice a little time, right? So look at those things, look at the sustainability, whatever works for you, what you know that you're going to be able to handle, because you know yourself better than anybody else.
Oh, yeah.
So know your limits and then shoot for the stars.
Shoot for the stars and make that money.
Period.
Get that bread.
Yes.
Like just do it.
Just do it.
Nike's going to send us a cease and desist now. Because I keep saying, just do it or don't do it.
Well, their
Like
slogan
every
isn't just
episode.
do it or don't do it. It's just do it.
Anyway, Lindy, any closing remarks on side hustles?
Just go for it. If you've been thinking about it and you really have a heart to want to do this, I say go for it.
So you're telling me to go start my seedling business right
Absolutely.
now? Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, if you need seedlings, you can hit me up. I'm in the lowercase building level. I'm joking. I don't have those seeds right now. I threw them away. But
But
always
next year.
setting those goals. Do the side hustle. Make your money. Know your worth.
Period.
And take care of yourself first and foremost.
Yes.
Screw the side hustle. If it's not benefiting you, then get out of there.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us today, guys. We appreciate you stopping by, sitting with us for a little bit. And take care. We'll see you next time. Bye. Bye.
I'm starting to think all that restaurant experience on your application was a lie.
You wrote Roku resume.
Well, why you do it then, baby Billy? Well, because I'm selfish.